So, all right. So, Advent Media, Andy Roman, Advent Messenger said, in an unprecedented move, Ted Wilson came out to strongly urge the delegates to shut down all discussion on COVID-19, and he spoke about you in this article for the 66 GC conference session. Your name came up, Johnathan Zirkle, a delegate. I'm not sure how much of this you can see. I'll make it bigger. There we go. Johnathan Zirkle, a delegate from the General Conference, proposed that the Seventh Adventist Church re-examine its position on the jab, code words, and that the topic could include on the agenda for the 61st General Conference session. So, first of all, I would like to know what led you to even want to make that move. We're gonna watch the video as we go, but what led you to even want to make that move in the first place?
Oh boy, well, that's a really long story.
Okay,
Um, I don't know where to begin, but I'll start with this.
it's
So
gone.
anyway, um, I'll start with just a little bit of background on myself. So probably 2004, 2003, something along those lines. I started to get contacted by people who wanted to have vaccine exemptions. And
Okay.
at the time, I was someone who took vaccines. And I thought they were a little crazy, but I thought, sure, people should have the right to do that. And so I have been writing vaccine exemptions or helping people write their vaccine exemptions for a long time.
Yeah, no
So anyway,
problem.
so I was helping people with that. I did that for a while. And then the second thing that was in my background was I was uh, an attorney for the Department of Veterans Affairs. And at the Department of Veterans Affairs, we do a lot of drug um, testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some litigation involving the drug testing. And in the process of doing that, I became very informed about how drugs are tested and what they have to go through. And
Okay.
so, because of that, it put me in a position where I kind of looked at what was going on with this jab for the C19. And I realized, there's no way that anybody knows this is safe or effective. It doesn't matter how much money you spend in order to do the proper research, you're going to take time. It's
Okay.
going to take time. It's impossible. And so when I found out there was going to be mandates, I got a telephone call.
Mm.
And I have to back up just a little bit too, because I'd kind of started to slow down my practice. I wanted to build a house. And then this C19 happened. And I prayed to the Lord as I was slowing down my practice. I said, I'm a little bit burned out. I don't really want to practice that much. So,
Yeah.
but I'd love to come back for religious liberty. And then I get a telephone call. And the telephone call is from some of the folks at Liberty and Health Alliance, and they're asking me to join that. They'd
Mm.
started it a few weeks before, and we knew the mandates were coming, and so I joined it then. And so that's my background about how I got started in this. What had happened was we had done a lot of different things to try to help people, and I won't go through. We can talk about the history of where we were as far as helping people and what the church was up to if you want to ask those questions. But
Yeah.
I just became convicted. So I had become a delegate before C19. All the delegates were chosen before C19 happened, and
Okay.
then they delayed the general conference, and then they went ahead and had it, the abbreviated general conference that we had. And so anyway, as far as planning to bring this up, it was really the result of a lot of prayer and conviction, and it really wasn't that. I guess I did plan it,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of a late in the game kind of planning, and it was based on a lot of just personal conviction, and
Mm.
I really do believe that the Holy Spirit was convicting me to do this, or else I
Yes.
wouldn't have done it at all. Because seriously, this was not. I knew it was not going to be a popular thing. I didn't realize how it would impact things. I had no clue. And I
Yeah.
really didn't think that far in advance. All I thought was that I was convicted to do it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Wow. First of all, I want to say thank you for doing it. Even though the result didn't go as you might have intended, you probably expected better from the reaction of our leaders that day. But this was a massive error And some people corrected me in the chat. Let me stop using that. They said this is not just an error. This was a catastrophic failure, right? So I said, I agree with that. I want to quickly play this video, and then we're going to preface from there. This is Pastor Ron Kelly again, a friend, good friend of yours in ministry as well. And I want you to notice what he said just last week at the Liberty meeting. Doing his sermons before the Religious Liberty meeting happened at the Village Church. And I want you to hear what he said.
You can imagine they came with a really positive and sweet spirit. No. I don't think it's helpful to call for the resignation of anyone. Aaron, David, and Peter weren't asked to resign. Is it possible that people do their best with their best intentions and it still turns out to be a potential mistake? I don't think it is helpful to stifle discussion on the floor of the General Conference session when a lawyer and delegate brings a global concern to a global meeting.
Wow. I want to pause right here. We're going to say a little bit more later on, but what's your thought on that? This was a direct reference to what you did that day.
This has come up so often when I go to church or places. I almost don't know if I react to it anymore. I've almost become immune to the reaction as far as people bringing this up.
Okay.
It's been very interesting experience for me. I'll say the least. I'm one of the more anonymous members of the Seventh-day Adventist Church until all this happened.
Wow.
And now I'm not.
Well, the Lord must have set you up for a reason, and I'm so glad that you followed that conviction and took a stand that day. So we're gonna react now to that video. If you could help me digest what's happening in the room, and again, there's a lot here to work with. So this is serious business right here. So let's begin.
So before you start this video, I want to say two things.
Please.
First of all, the one thing that I knew going into this was that virtually everybody in that room was vaccinated. Was jabbed. And the reason why that is because it was held in the United States, and at that time, you couldn't cross the border into the United States without the jab.
Okay. So
I knew I was going up against a very unsympathetic group of people.
Wow.
But I also knew that there were people that were joining the meeting by Zoom who, for that very reason, weren't in St. Louis. And so that's kind of a
wow.
background of what I knew when I stood up there.
Well, you did anyway.
Yes, I did. And the other thing that I want to make clear too is I really didn't expect myself to be successful. I didn't have any illusions that this was going to be a great success and that we were going to get on the agenda and that they were going to change their policies. Now, I hoped that they would, but I felt like it was something that had to be said for all of the people affected by this. They needed their voice heard. And so when given the opportunity, I had to take it.
Wow, that is a little bit scary, though, for you to say that. Because this was an important issue. For you to have thought that there was no way they're going to even listen to me. And you were right. They did not even consider it. That does show there's something wrong with our church here, at least when it comes to considering opposing views that they may not agree with. I think this should have been considered. We're talking about thousands of people signed, which I'm going to let you explain all of that as well.
Sure.
Lawyers and doctors and everything. That was kind of crazy to shut that down. Anyway, let's begin with what you had to say. Hopefully, YouTube will allow us to have the discussion without trying to censor everything. And let's take a listen.
COVID has caused a lot of problems in our church. It has caused a lot of problems for our members. I would like to propose that we discuss the position that the church has taken on the vaccines, specifically related to the statements of 2015 and 2021. Because of these positions that the church has taken, many people have suffered. I have a document that was signed by 25,000 Seventh-day Adventists in 138 countries, by 1,929 pastors, and by 4,164 medical professionals. And they are asking that we reconsider our stance on vaccination. And I would move that this be added to the agenda. I think it is extremely important for bringing our church together through this time. This has been a very divisive situation. It's been a situation where many people have lost their jobs, their livelihood. Some people have lost their homes. People have lost their custody battles. And a lot of it is due to the fact that they're not able to assert their sincerely religious held beliefs because of the position of the church. Now, I don't know what the right solution is, but I trust that this body can come to that solution. And I think it's very important that we have a discussion of this.
Thank you,
Wow. This was, I felt like there was a bomb dropped in the room at that moment. Yeah, I mean, did you rehearse that statement at all? It just comes right through your head as you were just talking.
So I'm a trial attorney, and I'm kind of trained to stand up and do this. It's like I have mentally in my mind the points I want to make, which are just like bullet points, 1, 2, 3 bullet points.
Got it.
And I get up and do this. So
I think I would have.
The Lord was preparing me with my career for this.
I think I would have been overwhelmed with anxiety right at that moment. I can preach really good, but if you put me in a spot like that, I probably will shrink. I don't know.
By far, the hardest part about this was that echo at that mic. I can't even begin to tell you how difficult that made speaking.
Wow.
I usually speak much faster, and I was doing everything I could just not to stumble over my words.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize it was that bad. It came out pretty good. So, the fact you were trusted with that list and take it over there to the GC and hoping to hold to ask this wasn't like an anti-vax thing. It was more like, hey, we need to re-examine this statement. That's pretty much what you're saying.
Yes.
Right? Because people are hurting and they feel like the church should protect their liberty of conscience and give them, if you want to take it, you want to take the jab, you feel at liberty to do it. Yeah, you can. A lot of people did and they are okay. This is not to say there was not a real virus. We knew there was a real virus, a real C-19. As far as the source is concerned, that's questionable. But the thing is, this was not like this wasn't an attack on any leaders. This wasn't an attack against the vax. This was nothing like that at all. This was simply, could we re-examine this statement? Because some people are hurting because of the way this statement is being used by some of our facilities. Why do you think they were rejecting it, though?
Well, I was actually really hoping we'd get the discussion at least. But the reasons why they're rejecting it is a little bit hard to, I can't speculate, I can't judge the heart. But if you notice, throughout the C-19 event, all the way up till today, the strategy is to not allow the other side to talk.
Yes, there's been a lot of censorship, and this is why we can even say the word. We have to say the word C-19 and jab to even get through this live stream. I had lost an entire channel over this. So anyway, let's keep going.
Sure. So that and then to probe deeper as to actually the reasons why. I mean, I would be speculating too much to be comfortable saying why, other than there seems to be this kind of there's a certain kind of partisanship that causes people to I mean, you see the logic lost a lot, and it does happen on both sides. Now, of course, I tend to think it happens more on the other side, but I suppose if you were to talk to them, they would probably say the same thing about us, and so. But fundamentally, the biggest problem is we're not talking, we're not discussing. And if you listen to what I asked for at the GC, I said, let's have a discussion.
Yes.
And we're not discussing. It's absolutely prohibited to have that discussion.
And I think that's what's concerning is that unwillingness to even dialogue about the matter and to consider what the other side is saying. Because, for example, during the time of the pestilence 19, I was overwhelmed with what the media was saying about this thing and how we needed to comply with all the mandates and so on. And part of my job also, I worked in the nursing field, and it was like this was the information. This was the only thing, right? If you don't partake of this, you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're an anti-vax. And I'm like, I'm not anti-vax. I just want to know a little bit more before I make a decision about a matter that I'm not necessarily sure where this thing came from. So I remember when I began to hear the other side, I began to notice that there was this effort to shut it down. Shut it down. You can't have the conversation. Shut it down, to a point where I even had a testimony that was shut down. And it was a true living experience that I had in the place where I was working. And I realized, wait a minute, there's something wrong with that. But I never expected, though, to come to my church and find the same spirit. I thought this was, okay, this is the world. Okay, the world is the world. Let the world do what the world do. But if we come into God's remnant church, Lord have mercy, this doesn't belong in our church, right? The people of God are doing things differently. That's kind of what I was hoping. I was heartbroken to find out the same cancel culture spirit has already invaded the church, and this discussion was not supposed to take place. Regardless, irrespective of what the arguments was from the other side, it was not supposed to be considered, which I thought that was weird. That's not something we do. Do we do that? And
No, well, I've learned that if anybody is ever going to limit free speech, they're probably trying to hide something. There's probably a falsehood in there that they're trying to protect.
yes,
And, Scripture says, Christ said that the evil love to do things in darkness. Now, I'm not calling anybody evil necessarily, because I do believe that there's evil people involved in all of this. But what happens is that we take our cues from people that are evil. You could be a good person, but you might take your cue as to how you should act from an evil person.
yes,
So I want to be careful. I'm not here to call names or
no,
anything like that. But whenever you see this restriction of speech, you can almost guarantee that there's somebody trying to do something. They're trying a power play, or they're trying to hide a truth, or something like that. And then you're right. To watch this happen in our church is heartbreaking. Our church should be aloof from all of this,
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
it shouldn't be involved, really.
And I think this is why we're having this discussion now, because Conrad Vine, of all people, he came out with a video, and you guys, about it and what he said, and called for the resignation of some of these leaders who actually affirmed that statement from AdCom, and also not only that, he called for restitutions. He called for some type of fund to be put aside to help the people who's been injured. But most of all was also this call about liberty of conscience. A lot of people likes to argue this is not a matter of liberty of conscience, because the church never supported it, which I thought was a little bit, should I say, dishonest. And I think Pastor Ron Kelly made mention of this here as well. I'm going to play that portion very quickly. There it is right there. And this is what he said. And he made mention of an individual, Gunoon Diop to be exact. And listen to how he checked it.
Produced a video. I think it's helpful that even as it appears this week, one of our prominent religious liberty leaders has produced a video that suggests that the organization never encouraged anyone to participate in any vaccination programs. I think it hurts. I think it's distasteful and untimely.
For example, we have been at the General Conference accused recently for promoting vaccine. We have not promoted that.
What I really think...
What's your thought on that?
Well, that's a falsehood. The General Conference has absolutely promoted the vaccine. I know, because I was approached by General Conference employees and the problems that they were facing and the challenges that they were facing because they wouldn't take the vaccine. And so one particular individual told me that although the General Conference itself never said that they would fire someone for not taking the vaccine, this person would not be allowed to travel if they didn't take the vaccine. And I just said it again, the jab.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so because they weren't allowed to take so what they explained to me is that that's the equivalent of quitting your job. especially the General Conference. If there's one thing the General Conference people do is they travel a lot. And so if you can't travel, you really can't do your job. And this person was like, I've lost my job if I don't take the jab. I need to have an exemption. We appeal to that. And then there's a bunch of other things that are very disingenuous about that. First, there's a real obvious one, and that is Loma Linda University is a General Conference institution.
Yeah.
Loma Linda University required its employees and students to take the jab.
Yes.
Loma Linda University had to be. It took an attorney who I highly respect, Matt Staver, to offer to sue them for them to change their policy so that there would be some exceptions.
So they had to be sued even to reject that to protect the students?
Oh, absolutely. Matt Staver wrote Loma Linda University a really eloquent letter explaining how they would lose. And I was involved in some of that conversations. And when Matt Staver got involved, it was wonderful because Matt's got a whole lot of reputation and respect. And I'm sure Loma Linda University did not want to be on the receiving end of his lawsuit. And so there was negotiation, and they changed their policy.
I think this is why having the discussion is so significant. Even though we love our church and our goal here, and we both know I am a Seventh-day Adventist in good and regular standing. I am not an offshoot. I am not an independent minister kind of thing who is opposing to the church. I work with conferences. I don't have an issue with that, but I do believe those conversations must be had. I am not of the type who will just cover it up and act like we don't have any issues. But at the same time, I don't use these issues to divide the church in a hope. My goal is to really bring, unity and so on. But I never knew, and this is a shocking information, I never knew that this was even being promoted by our schools, by our hospitals to that degree. That is
absolutely. I mean, I was representing people. I was getting calls all over the country about different schools, and I got into a fairly long exchange with La Sierra University over the jab, and very interesting what La Sierra had to say to me. My advice to the students at La Sierra that didn't want to take the jab, I said, look, you can pay me, I don't know, $30,000, $50,000, maybe more, and we can handle this in court, and it will take 2 or 3 years of your life. But I said, it's smarter for you as a student who wants to get on with your life is to go somewhere else. Wow. And that was commonly my advice to people. And it was nothing like dealing with like UCR. That's University of California, Riverside, which is the local UCR campus. I talked to some students there and I asked, how's UCR doing with that? And they said, oh, UCR is accepting the religious exemptions. We're not having any trouble. And there were a couple other public universities in Southern California that I was talking to students that were there. And one of them said, well, yeah, we're supposed to have it. They're telling it's mandatory, but they're not doing anything to enforce it. They've completely ignored me and I haven't taken it. So I'm okay, But La Sierra said that you could have no religious exemption whatsoever. And then I tried to explain to them that the law didn't say that. And then La Sierra said, well, the law doesn't apply to us because we're a religious institution. And because of that, we can construe religious issues any way we want. And the way we choose to construe it is that you don't have the right not to take the jab.
Oh, wait. It's a double entendre. Okay. All right.
And the most, well, I got to be careful. I don't want to reveal too much about my clients.
Yeah, without mentioning names.
But I would just say that the most eloquent statement of religious objection to the jab was written by a non-Adventist student at La Sierra. And it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I could tell it was from the heart. It wasn't the typical basis that I advise my clients to use. And La Sierra said, no, forget it. And I'm thinking to myself, this is a horrible witness. This is a non-Adventist student that you have there, and they've written a beautiful thing. They poured their heart out to you, and you're like, no,
I wish I could find that. Anyway, yeah, wow, that's crazy. I mean, you enlightening my mind here. Wow, this is sad. So I never expected our leaders to even fall in line with this to this degree, where even in the schools, people. I mean, I feel like there were systems in the world that were more lenient than some of
Oh,
our
much,
institutions.
much. The schools were the worst, and the worst schools of all were nursing schools. Universally, nursing schools. I pity the nursing students. They had it the absolute worst.
That's crazy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I work in a nursing institution. I had to fight. Yeah, I was at a point where I was going to bring Bible verses and everything. But when they said you can sign your own religious exemption, I said, praise the Lord. Because I'm like, I was ready to lose it. I was ready to lose my job because I'm like, I don't care. I'm not falling in line with this. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I don't believe in the narrative and stuff like that. So I'm so glad I took a stand against it. At first, I thought it was a good thing, but as I begin to do my research, I begin to realize, oh no, it's not a good thing. So, I'm out. Anyway, so I want to keep listening to this video. We're going to keep talking about it. So the next part of this video now is you're going to get a response from, I will say, the board in a sense, and then you're going to actually stand your ground, which is why the reason why I say I got to get in line with this guy, because I don't know why he didn't just sit down and just take a beat down and be quiet. But no. That's not what happened.